All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim HaKakwadash. And let to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And I just want to go into, a quick article, and bring out a couple of scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And this is from World Star. And it says, U.S. could run out of money by June 1st, warns the Treasury. And it says, according to reports, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned that the U.S. may run out of money by June 1st and would be unable to pay its bills if Congress does not raise or suspend the debt limit. Given the current projections, it is imperative that Congress act soon as possible to increase or suspend the debt limit in a way that provides long-term certainty that the government will continue to make its payments, Janet Yellen said. I'm just going to go to this article, and it's from CNN. Same thing, and it says U.S. could default on its debt as soon as June 1st if Congress doesn't act, Yellen says. Then this clip I'm about to feature, I'm using this for fair use purposes.
I was very stressed through the formula shortage.
We knew that parents would turn to us as an alternative. We had to dial up our factories as quickly as we possibly could.
I really trust Infamil. They took care of my family.
Outside of the debt ceiling, meaning the question that people are watching want to know the answer to is, can you guarantee as a leader in the United States Congress that the United States of America will not default on its debt?
I can, assuming that our president and the Schumer Senate recognize the gravity of the problem. This is no longer about politics. We have passed a debt ceiling solution. We will not, House Republicans will not allow America to default on its debt. We showed that last week. The solution is in the Senate right now. Again, you pass that solution, that solves the problem. But by the way, where the president's going to get into it with the House is going to be over the appropriations process, because this is not the end of the job. We're moving into appropriation seasons. We've got some major bills to pass, and we've got to be looking at all the spending across this entire government. This is just one piece. And I might remind everybody, Donna, that in the last 30 years, the only real significant spending reforms that have been negotiated by Democrats and Republicans came out of debt ceiling negotiations. President Biden himself said that this was what you have to do back in 2011. Nancy Pelosi said in 2019, you can't do a no strings attached deal. Again, Kevin McCarthy and House Republicans have given you the solution. The Schumer Senate should take it up and pass it. And if you don't like it, then I suppose your next step is to start to talk to our speaker and tell him what you would like to change so that you make sure we don't default on our debt. House Republicans have already done that.
Let me just quickly look deep inside what you did get passed this past week. The bill would cut all non-defense discretionary funding by 22%. That is a lot of money. And I want you to look at what the administration said it would mean just for your home state of Minnesota. Thousands would lose food, they say, rental assistance. They would pay more for college. Outpatient VA appointments for veterans could be cut. This will make a big difference if what you want, this bill, actually would become law. Big difference in the lives of Americans, especially those living paycheck to paycheck. What do you say to them?
Well, I actually challenge it. You've got a president who is just told by the Washington Post that his claims on the deficit get 22 Pinocchios. They're just not true. And what you just said is just not true either, because you should scrutinize what the administration is talking about. What we did was you go back to FY22 baseline budgeting, Donna. That's just 4 months ago. That's just last year. And the budgeting, the level we're talking about was passed by Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. So to suggest that House Republicans are doing something now, when you passed it just last year, and this was the numbers you were living under, that just isn't accurate. What this would do is this would be transformational. It would put this country on a trajectory where we can start to address our budget deficit. We're spending $1.29 for every dollar we're bringing in, Dana. This does not end well unless we start to fix this problem.
So just to underscore before we go, the cuts that I just laid out came from the administration. This is what they claim. You're saying that just is not true? And this is a hypothetical, theoretical question because what you passed, as we said, is ultimately not going to become the law of the land, but these are very specific cuts that they put out there.
Again, I know that's your opinion. I would hope this becomes the law of the land. And the use of cuts, these are spending reforms. And all we're doing is going back to the Biden-Pelosi budget of last year, that limit. And then with Joe Manchin's suggestion, limiting growth over the next decade by 1% annually. That's entirely reasonable. And by the way, we aren't having any substance coming from the White House, Joe Biden, or Chuck Schumer's Senate saying, look, this is what we should do to solve the debt ceiling. Kevin McCarthy and House Republicans have given you the roadmap of how to do that. Okay. You don't have any ideas? Let's protect this country and Americans by not defaulting on our debt. Just take the bill we passed last week, Dana. Make it law.
I'm just going to read a little bit of this article. It says the U.S. could default on its obligations as soon as June 1st if Congress doesn't address the debt limit before then, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said Monday after reviewing recent federal tax receipts. Our best estimate is that we will be unable to continue to satisfy all of the government's obligations by early June, and potentially as early as June 1st if Congress does not raise or suspend the debt limit before that time, Yellen wrote in a letter to the House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The accelerated timetable increases pressure on President Joe Biden and House Republican lawmakers to ramp up their debt ceiling discussions. After months of talks being at a standstill, the president called all four congressional leaders on Monday afternoon and invited them to a May 9th meeting. Time and in full could be a number of weeks later than these estimates. She noted that it is impossible to pinpoint an exact date since the amount of revenue that the federal government collects and the amount it spends is variable. She continued to update Congress as more information becomes available, but she reiterated that it is imperative that lawmakers act as soon as possible. We have learned from past debt limit impasses that waiting until the last minute to suspend or increase the debt limit can cause serious harm to business and consumer confidence, raise short-term borrowing costs for taxpayers, and negatively impact the credit rating of the United States, Yellen wrote. If Congress fails to increase the debt limit, it will cause severe hardship to American families, harm our global leadership position, and raise questions about our ability to defend our national security interests, she continued. The Congressional Budget Office also updated its forecast on Monday, saying that there is a significantly great risk that the Treasury will run out of funds in early June because of the weaker than expected tax collection. It had originally projected that the default could happen between July and September. It says hitting the debt ceiling. When the U.S. hit its $31.4 trillion debt ceiling in January, Yellen informed Congress that the cash on hand and extraordinary measures should last at least until early June, but she warned the projection was subject to considerable uncertainty. A variety of forecasters have estimated that the so-called X date when the U.S. would default will arrive over the summer or in the early fall. The likelihood of an early June default grew in recent weeks. When April tax receipts were coming in weaker than expected, a trio of analysts issued reports warning that the default date could hit soon. However, a surge of tax revenue last week prompted two analysts to revise their forecast to the second half of July. If tax collections wind up being enough to keep treasuries coffers flush through early June, then it's likely the government won't default until much later in the summer. The agency will get another injection of funds from the second quarter estimated tax payments, which are due June 15th, and from an extraordinary measure that becomes available at the end of that month. And yes, it's pretty much all I'm going to read, even though it's not that much left. But yes, America is in debt. This country, is circling the drain. CTD, it's crumbling more and more by the day. The U.S. dollar is getting weaker, more and more by the day, because these other countries are backing out, and coming up with their own, currencies, central bank digital currencies, CBDCs to be exact, pretty much they're backing away from the US dollars and pretty much, using digital currency. But that's pretty much what this is leading up to, just like the founder of Cash App that was, killed. And then not even a day later, the government introduces FedNow, which is pretty much, their introduction to a central bank digital currency, because they're pretty much gearing everybody up, to receive, the mark of the beast. So I'm just going to bring out a couple scriptures again. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 36 and verse 6, and it says, Lo, thou trustest in Egypt. It's like, Lo, thou trustest in this staff. Lo, thou trustest in the staff of this broken reed on Egypt. Whereon if a man lean, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So it fell king of Egypt and all that trusted him. Yes, ultimately that's what's going to happen to the people that trust in this government, that trust in this system, Ultimately, that's what, the main goal of the New World Order is, to get everybody chipped, So pretty much, people's entire, identity, the things that we carry in our day-to-day, our licenses, our medical record, social security number, everything is going to be on that small device, That device, again, being that RFID CHIP. This is the book of Isaiah chapter 31 and verse 6, and it says, Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, and stay on horses, and trust in chariots, because they are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong, but they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. Yes, this is ultimately what the people are going to do. They're going to trust in Egypt, which America is spiritually Sodom and Egypt, Revelation 11, verse 8, you know, we know why America is spiritually called Sodom, you know, because of the alternative lifestyle that is heavily pushed here, but also, you know, spiritually Egypt because of the, you know, the hardcore bondage. But ultimately, you know, that's what's going to happen to these people that trust into this system. You know, they're going to be destroyed ultimately, you know, destruction unto them. This is the book of James, chapter 5, verse 3. And it says, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is kept of you, Slakia, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped and entered into the years of the Lord of Sabaoth. Ye have lived in pleasure upon the earth. Slakia, ye have lived in pleasure on the earth, and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Yes, you know, it's lucky. I forgot to go. I read verse 1 and 2 as well, but it says, go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall further. Yes, like you. Go to you, or go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. You know. So, this paper money, which is worthless, you know, because that is an unjust balance, you know. We're supposed to be using paper money to trade, you know. We're supposed to be trading in, you know, silver and gold, you know, precious metals, livestock, you know, things that are actually valuable, you know. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 7 and verse 19. And it says, they shall cast their silver in the streets, and their gold shall be removed. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity. And yes, ultimately, you know, this paper money, these FRNs, which they're pretty much worthless now, but, you know, they're really going to become worthless once they crash. You know, once the US dollar is completely worthless, you know, people are pretty much going to cast their money, you know, in the streets, because they're going to slack you, a little excited. They're not going to be able to do anything with it. You know, people aren't going to be able to, buy and sell with it anymore, and them crashing the dollar is going to lead up to, them issuing out, the mark of the beast, which is that tiny device that is going to go in people's hands, So I'm going to end it on this. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 13. And I'm going to start at verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak. And cause that as many as will not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And yes, you're going to have, certain members of the elect that are going to resist it and be beheaded, because they resist this man's mark, because they resist this device, but that's that's going to be their testimony, they're going to die for this truth, and it was written they're going to be raised up for it, Verse 16, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and this number is 666. And yes, that's going into, Esau Edom's, plan, that device that he wants to give to everyone all over the world, but, it won't, it won't play out that way. Now a lot of people are going to take it, but ultimately, he won't be able to fulfill his new world order, The Lord is going to, only let them get so far before he comes back, to take them out of power, So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, HaKakodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from, and I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I say Shalom.